We can hope.
Does anyone actually? One viewer.
We
Maybe
have
that's us.
one viewer. I don't know. Who knows?
We'll see.
See how it goes.
Let me make like a post about it.
Okay.
Quick. Just like,
Yeah. Well, welcome, guys. We're going to get started in probably a few seconds. I think there's still some people in line out there working their way in. And we just kicked off the, we're broadcasting it as well on across YouTube for some people who want to watch it. We're going to do a lot of Q&A, so if you have questions, save those up. We'll have Erik share his story a bit as well at the beginning. There's probably some people that might have heard it before. I'm watching more people even walk in right now that I know are coming just for this. I'll give a quick background on what we're doing in Coeur d'Alene with the Innovation Collective in North Idaho. The Innovation Collective is an effort to drive the economy here with tech startups and get a culture of startups here, because a lot of people in town here work in healthcare and real estate, and there's a lot of opportunities, I think, in technology, and there's some great technologists here. And so we've been organizing the tech culture and kind of educating, connecting everyone, putting on a bunch of events, conferences, and starting to do classes soon. Tomorrow I meet with a bunch of engineers who want to start teaching coding classes. And we're working on some legislation even right now down in Boise that would be really interesting, all for Idaho. And it's just trying to push the state forward, and specifically North Idaho, as a tech hub. And it's been fun to see what's happened. In the last, I think, like 12 months, there's been about $9 million in funding in tech companies around here, which is great. Not something that's talked about a lot around here, but it's showing that there's a market for it and that people want to invest. There's a lot of capital here as well. And most people do want to invest in tech. They just don't know how, or what's good tech to invest into. We'll probably, do you want to wait a few minutes? I hope that, does that bother anybody if we wait a few minutes? Okay, good.
It's like that, eventually the noise level's going to be.
Yeah, we'll shut the doors in a few minutes. I just know that there's some people in line. I don't know, is there any more in line out there right now? Yeah? Okay. Then I want to wait for a little bit so we don't short circuit your story. Maybe, actually, this one could be good. Are there any questions from you guys specifically now that are here and you've read maybe a little bit about Erik before we dive into his story and other pieces that you guys could have like the moment right now and just back and forth? Yeah.
You feel that homeschooling give you an edge considering where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say I was, I guess, going a little bit into the background of my education. Up until about first grade, I was homeschooled, and my two older brothers were homeschooled. And then my parents, they got a little bit busy for their business. And then my middle brother, he was taking a Harvard class, like senior year, late high school, and it was kind of special. And so they put me in school in third grade, and this was in the East Coast. It was about in Boston. And I started out with like knowing nothing whatsoever and didn't even, I mean, I knew a lot, but I was behind the other students just because something that was unique with my parents is that they were really busy. And yeah, so I really excelled there. But then we moved back to Idaho because we were just out there for the year. And I went into school here because it went so well in third grade in Boston, but I did not do well at all. Actually, this year, fourth grade, all the teachers, this teacher broke her back. And then we just had substitute teachers for the whole year. And it was just within the first month of school that she broke her back. So we just had a new teacher, give or take, every day. And which, was an awful learning experience. And at the end of the year, I switched schools again. And during the summer, I always visited my brother, who also lived in kind of southern New Hampshire, Boston area. And I always learned so much with him. He had like a little farm up there. I just had such, incredible experience learning from my brother, who was also at his own kind of tech business. And then going back, fifth grade, new school, and that was all right. I had a, pretty good education there. I still didn't, learn as well as I did in third grade or when I was homeschooling. And I continued on for 6th grade because I was about an AB student there, and 4th grade I was actually like a CF student just because we had a new teacher every year, and then
distracting.
yeah, it is like, you know, we have to, because the teacher always has to get caught up, and then the students, you know, like each teacher has a different way of teaching, and we always have to get adjusted to kind of, you know, how that teacher phrases things, and you know, how much homework that teacher assigns, and then the next sub from the next day has to, you know, get caught up from the homework that the last sub did, and it was kind of just an awful mess. And I kind of, you know, switched schools a lot up until, you know, about 9th, 10th grade, and then I left school in the beginning of my sophomore year, and actually I skipped a grade back in 3rd grade. Sorry, I took a test and I was able to do well in 3rd grade, even though I wasn't ideal. And so I guess I dropped out the equivalent of my freshman year, or the beginning. So yeah, any other questions, or should we get started?
Yeah, are there more people that are out there kind of trickling their way in, or is this kind of a good feel of the group? Do you know? If they're in or not? Okay. You said yes or no? Not a crowd? Okay. Perfect. Yeah, then we'll get started. Thanks for coming, guys. And this is Eric. I'm Nick. And hey, Ken. I'm excited that Eric's doing this. I know he's excited, and it's nice to see the crowd. It's kind of a mix of, I know, some technologists, and then also seeing young people in the group as well is, to me, a really exciting thing. With Eric, I'm going to let him tell his story a bit more, but when I first became aware of Eric, it was funny. I knew a bit about your parents because some people were like, oh, you know, the Finmans and robotics and Coeur Lane.
My parents do a lot of that.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden somebody started talking about their son, and I was like, well, the parents sound cool, but this is interesting to me, the story about you and kind of your journey, especially because I have my own kids. I always think a lot about the school system, and I'm curious what's the best for my own children and the future economy, and how do you nurture talent. And today specifically, this is about, you know, how do you identify talent at a young age, and what should we do to nurture that? And I think there's a great story, an example of, in Eric, what it took for him. I don't think it's that way for everybody, but I'm definitely interested in his story because it's a unique one. So I'll let you tell your story, and then what we'll do is some Q&A from here, and then also online. If you want to chat, we can get your questions there as well. And I have some kind of preloaded questions if you guys don't have too many, but I'll let you tell your story, I guess, however you want. I know the freshman year and then on is kind of what a lot of people focus on, but I think you shared some about the background, but I'll let you take it.
Yeah, so like I said before, I kind of had, you know, pretty terrible education experience, switching schools all the time, bad teachers, you know, subs, a new teacher every day. And especially my freshman year at Coeur d'Alene High School, I had like teachers that, you know, said I should go work at McDonald's and drop out, and, you know, weren't really super positive reinforcement as a, you know, teacher should be, right? And then there was, you know, other students there, and then not just me, but just all, you know, the people that actually just kind of wanted to, you know, attempt to learn. They were bullied, and it was just not a good positive environment. And then I kind of, during that summer at the end of my freshman year, just kind of feeling terrible about myself, not getting good grades. I think I was optimistically like a C student. And then I went to these kind of summer programs to prepare myself for the next year because I did so poorly in the first year, even though I, you know, worked as hard as I could. I think I went, like, as soon as I got home at about 3, I worked till midnight, went to sleep, and then woke up again and woke up at 3 a.m. to continue my work until school started. And maybe, you know, wasn't too efficient at, you know, doing my work, but it was very difficult for me. And so I went to those summer programs, and I actually had a really good learning experience that way, especially this one teacher. His name was Toby, and he explained physics in a way, not that really, you know, was that different, but he was just so positive and, you know, good reinforcement. And I thought that was, you know, I've never seen a teacher ever do that before. Out of all the teachers I've had since 3rd grade, maybe only, you know, one sort of kind of did that. And that was such a, you know, a good positive experience. And he was a physics teacher. And then I think I got a C- in physics the last year. And, you know, I was top of my class of all these other these summer programs were for people that were usually, you know, kind of good in school, right? And I even beat them out. And that was, you know, very encouraging. And I think, you know, my mother, you know, she came at the end of the camp to show your progress, and she got a little teary-eyed and talked to me afterwards, like, you know, if you really did well in, you know, in this teaching style, right? I don't, you know, it's not you probably, it's the school and the environment that you're in, and not the, you know, good positive environment that you were in the summer program. And so I tried, you know, to go the next year, my sophomore year, and within a month it just wasn't working, and I was falling behind, and I had, you know, teachers that continued to say, you know, I'm a failure and not to do well, and so I left. Actually, you know, I was the one nervous about leaving, and it was my parents that were the ones that kind of said this wasn't working and you should leave. And I think they had that pivotal moment, is that I think they did my homework one night, and these are Stanford PhD parents, and then they got a C- on it. And so at that point they said, no, this isn't working, and I left. And
were those poorly worded questions? I have to ask.
There were poorly worded questions, kind of finicky graders, and it was the other students that graded it. And I don't know if that's, you know, graded by your peers is a good thing, because if they didn't like you, you know, it was basically based on the honor system. And if they didn't like you, they'd mark you off on some, and then, you know, I'd show my teacher if they marked it off, and she didn't really, or he didn't like me. Any of the teachers didn't really like me. And so they said, oh, well, you didn't show your work. And I don't know if it was bias or I actually, you know, didn't show enough of my work, but maybe a combo of the two, but it wasn't working for me. And again, I really don't like extrinsic, what is it, how do you pronounce it? Extrinsic? Like intrinsic? Intrinsic, yeah, extrinsic.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have, you know, taken more English classes. But intrinsic, there's intrinsic motivation, and then there's extrinsic. Extrinsic.
The opposite of intrinsic motivation.
Yeah. Where it's like, you know, you know, you're kind of, if you fail, you know, it's either you pass or you fail to do well. And intrinsic motivation, where you actually, you know, you learn where it's a means to an end. And that's how I learned really well. And I think that's, you know, how most people should learn, right? Like when you're a baby and you're learning how to walk, and of course you have your parents' help there, but, you know, it's a lot easier to, you know, be able to walk to get the juice than kind of, you know, point and yell towards the juice, and your parents may or may not get it. And, you know, same with talking, right? It's a lot easier to communicate with you on rather than just pointing and screaming. And that's how I learned really well. And rather than just kind of, you know, you fail, you know, failing is a, you know, good, amazing learning experience. And that was, you know, considered bad. And, you know, like I said, teachers hated me. And so I dropped out on, you know, I didn't really have, you know, anything to fall back on. Usually, you know, people recommend to drop out to fall back on it, and like a job or something. But no, I had nothing. Like this was, you know, just completely going into, you know, the void. And I started this side project, and it was called Botangle. And it was kind of an online tutoring system to, you know, over video chat. So let's say you wanted to learn Spanish, rather than learning Spanish from, you know, someone in probably the whitest place in the world, North Idaho, you can learn Spanish from someone from Ecuador, or a native Spanish-speaking country, and have access to, you know, high-quality experts that are based off a rating system. So you can, if they're a bad teacher, you can rate them 1 star, and the teachers can rate the students, you know, 1 or 5 stars too. And so I created that to kind of, you know, as a side project, just to, you know, because I really wasn't doing well in my current education system. So I went out and tried to make my own education system. And I did that, and it was getting to a point where it was kind of beyond my skill level to program and to make. So I, you know, was looking on this other source, maybe looking for a co-founder, looking for something else. And then I noticed this thing called Bitcoin, and it was in the news. And I think I remember, you know, my brother 3 years ago or something, my brother was going on and on about this thing called Bitcoin. And at the time it was like 1/10 of a penny or a penny. And I bought it at about $12, I think, when my brother finally convinced me to, to buy Bitcoin. And I did it more to spite him because I wanted more Bitcoins than him. And I did this 3 years ago from a $1,000 check given my grandma. And trust me, when I got that check, I was 12 or 13 at the time. I called her up and asked if she was dying, because why would she ever give, a 12 or 13-year-old to call, a $1,000 check? She said it was for college, but I didn't use it for college. And so I did that, and it kind of paid off 3 years later when, I noticed this thing called Bitcoin was in the news, and it was going $800, $900, $1,000 per Bitcoin. And if you don't know what Bitcoin is, it's a currency, and the value of the currency goes up and up and up. So one Bitcoin or $1 is, instead of Bitcoin, it's worth $1,200 per one Bitcoin. So that's what it's worth, and it's defined by an algorithm and how many people buy and sell into Bitcoin. And so I bought with $1,000, and I bought 100 Bitcoins 3 years ago, and I noticed that it was a huge amount, and I needed something to kind of help me with my business. So by then it was about $100,000, and so I sold all my Bitcoins, 100 Bitcoins, and I used that $100,000 to kind of hire a few people and to help me with my site. And so I did that, and then that started making some money, and I was able to become kind of financially stable off that, and still am financially stable. And the place where all startups go, and I know you're trying to change this, but is Palo Alto or Silicon Valley in California, in the Bay Area. So I went to this conference down there to kind of get a feel of it, and it was called the 20 Under 20 Summit, and it's this conference which kind of based off it's a conference for this fellowship, to promote this fellowship called 20 Under 20, which was started by Peter Thiel. And Peter Thiel, if you don't know him, he's the co-founder of PayPal. And I did that. I went to the conference, and suddenly, where I kind of found my people. There was a bunch of other 15, 16-year-olds, all kind of starting their own businesses, all have, reasonable levels of success. And you had to apply to get in, so it was a big filtered group of people. And I talked to this, they was holding a Q&A session like this, and I was, one of the people in the audience, the youngest person in the room, or not the youngest, actually, towards the youngest. I think I was just turned 15 at the time. And I raised my hand and asked one of the other co-founders of PayPal, I forgot his name, and okay, and then, hey, okay, a bunch of other people. And one of the co-founders of PayPal, I said, I'm from Idaho. There's not much of a tech world here. It's not this huge, kind of supportive place where I find other 15, 16-year-olds that know how to code and are starting businesses. And I said, so how do I create that in North Idaho? And he says, you don't. Sorry. And you moved to Palo Alto or, San Francisco. And I did. And I did it through this internship, through this company called Sprayable Energy, who a person that I met at the conference. And I met him, and we got to talking, and his product was called Sprayable Energy, and it was like sprayable Red Bull for your skin. So rather than drinking Red Bull and kind of eating all the calories, you could spray it, and then no calories, and you immediately get the surge, or within 1 to 2 minutes, give or take. And so I went to work for them as a marketing intern over the summer, and that allowed me to move to San Francisco, Palo Alto. And then I was actually working out of Stanford's incubator. It's called StartX, where they take Stanford graduates and then put them into a company. And I felt like really special too, because my dream college before I left high school was Stanford. I thought that was my place. That's where my parents went. It's nice, sunny, hot weather, unlike Idaho, and that was my dream place. And it was kind of cool because they treated me very much like a founder there, and just like another Stanford graduate, and not just kind of some lousy intern that got coffee for everyone. So it was kind of nice. I felt like, I skipped Stanford and went right into, starting a company. And it was really cool, and they helped me. I was able to run events in their space, and they gave me a free scooter, which I used every day. And it was wonderful. And I also got paid to do work in Silicon Valley. And it was really interesting. There was these smart spoons that were cool, and everything was smart refrigerators, smart phones, of course, and smart everything. And I actually, there's this guy named Paul Graham, and he's this prominent startup figure in the Bay, and I saw him at breakfast, and I actually waited for him outside the bathroom, and it was just this completely creepiest, stockiest thing I've ever did. And when he left the bathroom, I was a little nervous, starstruck, Paul Graham. He's kind of this, I think he's in his late 40s or something, and white-haired dude. And most people, oh my God, Beyonce, but no, I'm Paul Graham. And I was too nervous to talk to him right outside the bathroom, so I said, oh, excuse me. And then I pretended to use the bathroom, and then I went out. And I noticed my friend that I was also eating breakfast with, he started going up to talk to him. And I was like, no, no, no. And I tackled him and then almost brought him to the ground. And just because I wanted to talk to him first, and we created this whole scene. So, we had to go up and talk to Paul Graham. And I talked to him. I was completely starstruck, couldn't even get a word in. But he did offer me some, good advice. And my friend took advantage of my starstruckness. He got his questions in there, got his email or something. And, it was really cool. And it was just, most people, these were their daily lives, right? These were just people, running multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar companies or VC firms. And this was all completely new and a shock to me from just kind of, I live in Rathdrum on a farm, it's completely whole different world. Yeah. I'm like, there's sidewalks here, wow, rather than dirt roads in Rathdrum. And it was just amazing. And I learned so much, and I was treated like, an equal, not some random 15, 16-year-old. And I had, I got all these amazing opportunities from it. I have a ton of job offers, and I was able to advance my business. And I've actually been really getting into kind of the philosophy of education from it. And I've, just around my people and being able to talk with people like you and share my experiences with kind of coming back to North Idaho and sharing. I mean, still a lot of work to do. But
tons.
It's great to keep you updated.
Tons. It was just interesting how you're talking about, do you, go to Silicon Valley or do you build it here? And I absolutely agree. I think the quickest route is Silicon Valley for sure. There's no question.
Yeah, for sure. You just got to come back here.
Yeah, well, I think it's fantastic, even things like having you here and hearing your story. One of the things I wanted to ask, if you had a son, you're 16.
Yeah.
If you had a son.
16 and pregnant.
Yeah, you're 16 and pregnant. If you had a son, though, what would you, if you could kind of create your own educational pathway based on your experience, what would you do with that? Because I know a lot of parents now are wrestling with those questions. I don't know, who is like a parent or a person who's in school or has thought about school in general and been like, is it the right pathway, just kind of turning it over to public school or not? I don't think there's like a parent in here that doesn't think that. Because, we look at the system as a whole, and it's, not really the greatest system. I think there's a lot of great effort and conversation about how to fix it. But a good example, we were talking about this, is the schools here, Coeur d'Alene High School specifically. A lot of the parents have been saying, we need robotics classes, please, please, please. And one of the individuals in the community who's very proficient in robotics and has all these awards said, hey, I'll teach. But he has to take 3 years of certificates to be able to teach before they'll let him.
And his cameras have gotten to ISS, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he knows robotics well enough that he shouldn't have to take 3 years of certificates.
Is it Mr. Mueller?
I won't comment on who it is or which schools or what have you, but it's just a good example of the system is a bit broken. Yeah. So if you had a son, what would you say? Is it a mix of schooling, maybe in a few minutes, like a minute or so?
Yeah.
School?
So if I had a kid, I would completely not put him through the school system, because that's just like a prison. You should be able to, I think it's just crazy where they say, let's say this person is really loves math completely, just loves it and wants to spend so much time of it, and then you're kind of limiting them to 45 minutes to an hour, and a bell rings and they expect you to kind of turn your head off and switch to a different class. Or even if you're not enjoying that class, that's awful, right? And that's where it goes back to my extrinsic, okay, I'm not going to even
just own it and go with it.
Extrinsic motivation, where you have to do this or you're going to fail, right? And whether there's intrinsic, where you're you do things that are a means to an end, right? I think there's this kind of this site called Poland Ball, and basically what it is it shows these it's these comic strips, and it shows these little balls, and they're kind of personified countries. So they have eyes, a smile, and a little fall kind of like Poland or like the US. And that's actually, like, I read those comics, and the ones that I understood were very funny, and they were all history related. And I could not understand like 90% of the comics on there. So I like spent hours and hours learning history just to get the references to these kind of like 3-strip comics. And I don't think, I don't think everyone would be like that, right? And that's, there's no system out there. You just kind of need to, motivate yourself to understand something that you're passionate about, and do things that you love.
It's good. I think you're a good example of, like you're saying, finding passion and throwing yourself into it. There's a lot of authors out there that write about identifying your passion, and the world is getting flatter with technology and information. So it's a really interesting time being a kid. I mean, you have something you love, you can access any expert's thoughts on it in an instant. That's not how the world has been for most people in this room, for the adults. And now anybody who's in this room that's in school right now, that's the power you have at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Like and for the adults, that's the power we have at our fingertips. That's a fascinating shift. The answer a lot of times in the past, if someone asked you a difficult question, it was, well, I don't know. If you didn't know, now it's like, hold on 1 second, and then you hit Google.
Exactly.
And you start searching, and then you can find anything in the world pretty rapidly. There's a few things you can't, but then you can find the person who knows it and engage them through some source. Like you're talking about Paul Graham. I want to point something out that you talked about that you did there. That's really important for all of us in this room, is realize most people are accessible. And people want to talk to you. People want to help, especially when you position yourself in a way that you respect something about them and ask for their help or their insight. You don't drain them, but just a few seconds of their time. You'll learn that people really do want to chip in. It's amazing. I've very rarely reached out to someone that I needed something from, some help with something, that they have said, no, I won't help you. Usually it's something that they want to help with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in person, like, it's very awkward to say no. So that's what I've learned.
Perfect.
Perfect. The social pressure.
Yeah. What kind of questions maybe do you guys have from the crowd for Erik in regards to nurturing talent, or just anything you want to ask him? And priority will go to the younger people. I'll just say that. If I see a hand for someone under 20, I'll go there first.
Boxers or briefs?
Yeah, boxers or briefs.
Yeah, I don't know.
And if there aren't any questions, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I know your parents or your mom gets involved with robotics and stuff, and it's the first robotics. It's kind of the same thing over and over. To some extent, but things that are hands-on like that. I mean,
Exactly. It's project-based, right?
What do you think about that kind of stuff?
Oh, I love First Robotics. I think, like, my mom helped me start a team, First Lego League, when I was about 7 or 8 years old. And I've just completely loved it. And that's another thing, like, where people are learning to a means to an end. It's completely voluntary to join First Robotics. And there's just so many things. Like, we need artists on the robotics team, right? Because we need people to design banner heads and marketing material. And we need, like, little kids, right? Because we need to make them look cute, and while we raise money for a robot, right? Which involves business people. And it's all these people that, you would not think you need artists or designers or business people. You'd think you just need programmers and hardware people. And that's what I love about, robotics. And I think that model could be applied, not instead of centering to a robot, but, centered around other things as well.
And one thing I observed, I started, back in somebody named Dennis Coeur.
Oh, he was great, man.
Yeah.
He's amazing.
I remember the first year, I can't remember if it was the first or second year I showed up, there were kids that were there, no offense to them, they were kind of nerds, The ones that they were smart, and they were kind of nerdy, kids to some extent. But by the time 4 or 5 years later when I left, there was a group, a pretty large group.
Yeah.
Some of the kids were playing sports, so the cross section changed pretty dramatically. And that impressed me, because I think that a lot of times the cutting edge people sometimes are, it's sort of the ones a little bit out of the mainstream.
Well, the internet came from the fringe, right? And all these, like, amazing tools have come out of, like, the fringe and the super nerdy people.
Yeah, and I think one of the pieces to play off of that, though, with the people who might feel, I've heard this from a lot of people who help with the robotics teams, is that many of the kids who aren't into robotics feel kind of like, I'm too dumb to, like, learn how to code or whatever. Like, you're never too dumb to learn something new, and especially at this age, take risks and do things like that. It's nice knowing one of the courses we're getting ready to put together on learning to code. Like there's no base level knowledge that's needed. And these guys who all work at different companies around here are going to start teaching from the base and help people grow from there.
Yeah.
You had a question.
Oh, yeah. So I'm trying to do game programming, but I don't have enough experience. So how would I learn to go farther with that?
Yeah, so there's like plenty of websites to do that. I think there's one site, I don't know if they're still under this name, but it was called Make Games With Us. And it's kind of like, they allow you to make kind of simple games and, you know, simple ones. And I think code.org, they have one where you can make your own little Flappy Bird game. And yeah, code.org and Make Games With Us, I think, are the two best. And you could probably just Google it, like best, you know, learn how to code with gaming, right?
Yeah, that's good.
Sweet.
Other questions? Any of them? If not, I got a list. Yeah, go ahead.
What would someone do to get into graphic design?
I don't think I know Keely. She's a graphic designer in the room.
That's a good question.
But yeah, so I think there's plenty of materials online. I think one of my friends, Keely is the perfect example of, you know, very intelligent graphic designer, but she's looking for more and more and more to learn. And I've introed her to like designers at Google, designers at Facebook, and just all around amazing designers. And most of these designers, they didn't learn by going to college or something. They learned completely off online resources. And then there's like amazing communities, like I run a group called like Day One Design, and there's like Reddit, if you've heard of that. There's these kind of subcategories where you can learn design, and there's just so many online communities, online resources, online tools, all for free without paying, you know, an obscene amount of money for college, you know, that you can learn better with. And yeah, I just Google it, I guess, you know, good design, design websites.
So it kind of sounds like what you're saying is that if a student doesn't really know what they're interested in, they just need to go on Google and start poking around, just researching and kind of orient themselves by what their interests are and
yeah,
contact
exactly.
people that are
intrinsic versus extrinsic, right?
Yeah, where you're learning because you're interested in, you're motivated to find out more. It's learning to learn more, not just to get a good grade at school or just to make a teacher happy that you happen to like or something
exactly.
like that.
Like just try things for a day. I did a TEDx teen talk, and then I like went into kind of trying things for a day and just sampling things. Like I was really into gardening for a while, and I was a part of a community garden for a day. And then, you know, I got into it for a couple weeks, but then, you know, I found out it wasn't really my thing, right? And then with robotics, I just tried it out for a day and I completely loved it. And it's just really Googling it, sampling your passions. And something that I really like is meetup.com, is that it allows you to kind of create your own meetup and find your group of people when there might be none. Like, you know, like Nick Smoot is doing. Do you have a meetup.com thing?
We use Eventbrite.
Yeah, use Eventbrite, right?
Yeah.
Where you can find your little community of people, or even start your own little community of people like Nick is doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's just incredible.
Yeah, I think it's William Randolph Hearst. One of the things I found interesting about his education, I don't know if you know this.
No, I don't.
So his parents took him out of school for a year, and they just traveled the world. He and his mom did. And his dad would go and catch up with them. And as he went around the world, that was part of the inspiration for the castle, for Hearst Castle. And if you go through the castle ever, it's all sorts of different pieces that he literally bought from around the world after he made all his money, and would have it imported that he liked from somewhere and then stuck it in the castle. And it's a cool experience to go through there. And one of our presidents went through the castle and said, this place is better equipped to run the United States than the White House is at the time, because it was more wired. He was the first telecommuter working from the middle of nowhere at the castle. Yeah. And it's just a neat example of, you know, learning kind of a unique way of finding your passions. You know, I definitely, you know, like we were saying, Erik's path isn't probably for everybody, but I definitely would agree with the fact for sure that identifying a passion and fueling that and finding a way to make that the incentivized system for individuals is hands down the way that we have to continue to grow. And I think for myself, when I look at my kids, that's what I want them to do. And especially that's what you're describing, is find something you love and keep putting fuel on that fire for your kids or for yourself even. There's, you know, you don't get tired. All the most successful people who keep working at things, they say they don't feel like they work because they love what they get to do, which is the truth. Any other questions? Questions out here? Yeah, right here. Yeah, what was your question? No?
Go for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No?
Sounds good.
That's okay. Do you want to tell your parents and then they can tell us? Okay, tell them. And then they'll pass it on.
He has history at his school.
You have history at your school?
That's cool.
That's great. Do you like it?
That's
Awesome.
You should find a project around history then. Like I think the little castle or something. I think that'd be cool.
I got a question for you. Before you sold Bitcoin, what did it cost you to get Botanicals going?
Botankle is like $8 a month for like a domain name, and then like maybe $20 a month for a server. That was it. So $30 a month. Actually, no, it's $8. It was $8 a year for the domain, and then it was $20 a month for the server. So yeah, so about $20 a month.
Was from your mind, and
Yeah, and then yeah, I just learned how to do it.
How did you grow it when you spent the money on it? Then how did you make it get bigger?
So apparently people like a story about a 15-year-old making money off Bitcoin. So I really took advantage of that, and then you don't get on. You kind of have to know people in the group. Like I started off with actually just a Reddit post, and if you don't know what Reddit is, it's kind of this forum with all these sub-communities, and you can find like a forum about entrepreneurship, a forum about startups, a forum about design, a forum about funny, or it's just funny comics or something, and I went on Reddit entrepreneurship, and then I made a post about my story, and I made this kind of a little essay in the description, and I had like my parents all review it first and make sure it's perfect, and then it went to the very top. Like they have these upvotes and downvotes, so it's kind of like a like and a dislike. So and then I got like 300 likes, which was a lot, and that went to the very top, and then I got this press company called Mashable. They picked it up, and then Business Insider picked it up, and they asked me, and they interviewed me, and then suddenly that kind of caused it to kind of go viral, and then I got asked to speak at TEDx Teen, and then the Time magazines that they're looking for impressive teens, and then they asked the TEDx Teen person, and they recommended me, and it's kind of all links together. Like I'll be speaking with Buzz Aldrin like through the White House, or someone who I don't know if it's through the White House, but it might be someone from the White House. I'm confused, but there's like Dean came in there, and like guy started Foursquare, and this person at Google, and Dean of Admissions at MIT, and all these really cool people like that. And that just came from I don't know. They just like found out. They Googled me, right? And
So did they invest? How did that turn into capital?
For money? For marketing it? Oh yeah. So for getting all the press to use my site. So experts can teach on my site, and they can charge whatever they want. So let's say they charge $30 an hour, and I take I think I lowered it to 15% now, but I take a percentage on how long so if you take a lesson for an hour, and let's say that's $30, I take a percentage off that. So it used to be 30%, so I would have taken about $9.99 off of it or something.
And so this was organic marketing?
Well, yeah, so I basically just got Mashable saw my story, and they picked it up, and then I got a lot of users from my site who took a lot of lessons.
Cool.
I make money off the lessons.
Self-funding in that case, you didn't have to go.
Oh
pay
no, I didn't get
somebody.
investment money. No.
Yeah, sold your Bitcoin, and it's one of the terms they use is called earned media. So you do something that's significant, and then you earn the media as opposed to buying. Or advertorials is another one that you'll pay for advertising, or like stories about you. But the earned media, hands down, is the best.
Yeah.
Like I'll say that if you run your company right, like every news outlet is looking for a story, and you need to tell the story in the right way, and significantly. I mean, you can get a story picked up.
So did you spend your money on programmers to make the site function the way you wanted to?
Yeah.
How did you spend that money to make it grow?
So like I said, I was kind of, it got to a point where like it would have taken me like, months and months and months to like learn this stuff. And I always, looking back, I would have done a lot of things differently, but like with what I knew now, what I knew back then, like I used the money to hire programmers once the experience kind of, went above me and skill level. What?
Good question.
Yeah. At the time when you were just getting that started, did you have a mentor or anybody besides your parents that was like, you should take a percentage or anything like that was helping you kind of guide your ship where it's going?
Yeah, so there were two people. One was my oldest brother. He was this amazing inspiration for me. He was, he was like a third parent, and he helped me like so much through everything. And he always gave me advice to, work on projects. He got me first into technology. Actually, he bought me an iPod Nano when I was about 7, and that's just like I was like, whoa. And then that completely changed everything. And I got really into tech. And I asked him, good tech blogs to look at. And then there's this, and then he actually bought me this book called Without Their Permission. And it was written by the guy who started Reddit, which was actually, my claim to fame, the forum. And I read the book, and it was actually like, I hate reading books. And this was the only book that I actually like read out of my own motivation. And I read the book, and I was completely, I basically idolized Alex Ohanian, which was his name. And I actually got the opportunity to meet him. And he was running, this was also one of the other motivations to sell my Bitcoins, was he was running this charity campaign where he was trying to fund every STEM project in Brooklyn, and he was doing kind of a Kickstarter for that. And so I put, I think how much it was from the Bitcoin money, which was too much for my parents to put in, but it was small enough where it's still rational for the Bitcoin money. And then I was able to meet him, and then I flew to New York, and then I met him. I actually met him with Keely. She was, helped design actually my site, so that was cool. And because you were allowed to take 2 people, and I would have taken my oldest brother, no offense, but he couldn't make it. And I was able to meet him, and he, gave me such amazing feedback. And I think I emailed him like a week ago, and we still keep in touch. And this was like a year and a half ago, and he's helped me so much. Just my oldest brother, parents, and the Reddit guy.
Keep in mind he's 16, right? 16?
Yeah, 16.
It's cool. I mean, I know you came up earlier, you're 13. I'm a big believer. You look at society, there's a few great books out there about the shift that happened with teenagers, but post-industrial kind of revolution, it created all this excess income. And then we got this magical thing called a teenager, where it was like, you don't have to worry about working in the fields or like getting a job. We have a little bit of money. And then big cities and factories popped up, and it created this weird tension of this like angsty youth era where it's like, I should be doing something. I'm worth something. And instead of being like, you're worth something, or hey, here's what you need to do to contribute, it was like, just play video games or like go play jacks, like, as opposed to, hey, do something positive and contribute. And I love hearing these stories as the world's getting more connected. There's so many opportunities to contribute and create. I have to keep reminding myself that Erik's 16. It's encouraging to see that. And to hear, that you're a designer and doing great things. Yeah.
So you mentioned you don't really care a whole lot for reading books. How did you spend your earlier preteens and prior to that? What were your hobbies? Reading, Legos, drawing?
Robotics, for sure.
And then how did that contribute to where you are today and where you plan on going?
Yeah, so robotics was such a huge thing in my life. Like he was saying, I got, with the help of my mom, she helped me start this robotics team. It was Lego robotics, and just kind of had simple motors on it. And I did that when I was 7 or 8. And then I was on kind of towards the middle school age. I helped start this team, which was kind of custom RC cars. It was called First Tech Challenge. And this thing, and then towards high school, I started this thing called the First Robotics Challenge, which was like, kind of this level high robots. And you had they were like humongous RC cars that could shoot frisbees and climb pyramids, and not like real pyramids, but bars and stuff. And that's where I really got into it. And then, and I had such like a positive experience, and there was really no like head person, and there was really no coach, or there was a coach, but like it was just very hands off, and it was just really the other students that really help you learn. And I really wanted to that's what really made me passionate about. I had such a great learning experience that way, and that's where I got started with education, where I want to bring this good learning experience to other people. And I had such an awful experience and a great experience, and they were just kind of 2 parallels of, God and Satan, right? Like completely opposite things. So yeah.
Teamwork thing.
Yeah, exactly. Teamwork, hands off, and it was wonderful. Just learning from your peers.
Yeah. I think exposure to mentors is a really important thing. That's what I love about your website, is that's really what it is.
Yeah.
Being mentored by people who are knowledgeable in what they're doing. And, I think we stay too busy and we lack focus sometimes to connect with the right people and be mentored at the right moments. I've heard it said, and I think it's really true. Right out of high school, college, that age, what a fantastic time to take risk. and to really, go for it and try things, because what happens if you start a company in a design firm and you fail and you shut it down? I mean, how are you going to pay for, food on the table and your rent? I mean, if you're 16, you don't have those things usually. You don't have to worry about the typical things. You don't have a family. It's like, you're not going to go home. Your husband will be like, oh, you lost the job. What's wrong with you? So it's exciting to see risk being taken. What other questions are out there? Any specific question? In the back, anybody?
Sounds good.
If not, I have one I was going to ask you.
Sweet, ask me a question.
If you could pick like 3 things that you think you've covered a lot, but 1, 2, 3, or what's the most important thing to inspire someone at a young age? Like, what would those a few things be that they should be doing or focusing on?
Well, I guess maybe drop out of school. I mean, honestly though, it's such a prison and it's such a rat race, and it's awful. And I think you don't even I get MIT offered, put me into their college, and I dropped out of school, right? And they wouldn't have even cared if I left school. And so I drop out, I guess. And if any of you want to friend me on Facebook, be happy to share you some good links, and I'll post them in the Facebook group. But and then 2, I learn how to build, and I think learning how to code, it's gonna become, I think it's gonna become just as important as learning English. I think that's always a good thing, because no matter who you are, if you're an artist, you still need to learn how to build a website. And even being an artist, you could really make in Silicon Valley, you could make $100,000 to even $250,000 a year just being a designer at Google or something. Look at you. And then and learn how to code, and just and I'd always just say try to find your passion, Google new topics, and those Wikipedia trails you go on, just always kind of write down your thoughts when you go on those Wikipedia trails.
Yeah, I think it's a point I want to make there. Bill Lupian, he's a guy he lives in Coeur d'Alene off and on, is a part of the Innovation Collective as a supporter. He created Instanet, which is the electronic trading system for the stock market. And fascinating guys, taught innovation before, creativity at universities, and runs a hedge fund out on the lake now. And one of the things he talked about was similar of just getting lost in the internet sometimes, and going on Wikipedia and just diving in and where it takes you and taking notes about it and letting you kind of give yourself over to your journey of just the curiosity. And I think we live in a really neat place. As long as you do it in the safe boundaries at a young age, let your curiosity run wild and take notes on it, I think is fantastic advice. Yeah.
Just a comment. I know there was a question earlier about where you code and everything. One of the programming languages is designed.
She was like fine all of a sudden, then I came back and she was like, I'm leaving.
Language called Alice.
Alice?
Okay.
Alice. Yeah, just Google Alice programming language. It's free. You can download it.
Awesome.
Put together games.
Girls game.
Awesome.
Sweet.
For simple programming right now, I'm using Scratch.
From MIT.
Yeah, Scratch, yeah. Because Google, MIT, something. Yeah, they use it.
Scratch.mit.edu.
Yeah.
And you're in.
Yeah. Exactly.
The world's a neat place, isn't it?
Have you seen that? Compare that against Alice?
I've heard of it. I haven't played with it.
Well, we're looking for Alice now. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah.
What's the biggest challenge you face now?
I mean, just always. I don't know. My life is full of challenges. It's hard to.
One, he's 16.
Yeah. Exactly.
Learning how to shave, it's awful.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know where I'm gonna live is probably the biggest thing. I've been to my brother now, the oldest one. He lives in Australia, and I really like the city he lives in, and it's amazing. And that's a place I want to live. But then New York is fun, but I don't think it's a great place to work because I too much in my life. And then San Francisco, where it's not as fun to live, but it's really good for work, and that's a big challenge I always can face. I know it's not that relatable, but I mean, but
That's our family's challenge right now too.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's a big conversation that comes up. Friend of mine that have kids that they're raising here. They're trying to figure out, is this the best place to be educationally? Is it the best place to be for my family? There's a lot of those questions that people wrestle with. That's why You know, when we came back here, it was one of those dialogues about how do we raise the consciousness of the community through the Innovation Collective and put a lot of effort economically in an experiment to see, can we create a startup community? You know, and we're definitely not fully there, but it's neat to see. You know, we have 60 events per year now, and the designer, who's ever used, like, you know, the Microsoft Connect, like the little thing on top of the Xbox, the designer behind that and the lead guy for that, he's coming this year to speak. And we've got some crazy astronauts and guys from Singularity that are coming. All sorts of people we keep bringing in, and we even had some of the big automotive companies starting to look at the area due to some of the policies we're tinkering around with around self-driving cars. So it's piece by piece to figure out what makes the right culture. But I think there are pre-existing cities it's just a lot easier to plug into, and it's just kind of you go with it. But I also think the world is, you can engage a lot of things and learn from anywhere you are. But if I was 16 and I had the options, I'd probably be looking at the world going, is it Sydney, New York, San Francisco?
Exactly.
It's a good place to be. You know, we've probably got time for maybe one or two more questions.
Go for it.
So, question for both of you guys. I've heard what sounds like some of the rock star positions described. For instance, basketball players play for, you know, the top team. But then there's everybody else. I don't know that all graphic designers are going to get 100, 250,000 a year.
No.
What's the slightly more average, accessible kind of things that you guys see? Not being the top guy, what else is available for all of the, you know, normal people that are pretty good at what they do?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's like plenty of things, right? Like you could just have like your own little small like design forum, and you can design websites and have like a little niche in North Idaho, and, you know, expand that business out to all of Idaho and then Washington, Montana, and kind of as you go, right? And like there's plenty of jobs available, and even at startup companies, there's, I guess I'm always in the startup mode, but like, you know, there's kind of less, you know, you don't have to aim for the Google ones. There's the ones where you get equity and then you also get paid. And yeah, I mean, I just do it as a hobby, if anything else, right? And something will come out of it when you're like put into that community.
I think to answer from my side, some of the other jobs that are attainable, I mean, just learning to code, like you said, is really important. There's all sorts of opportunities. Even here, I know one company's trying to hire 6 people. I know JavaScript and a few other things. There's opportunities here. You know, and it's for marketing, some are business development, inside sales. I think one of the things to focus on, though, I would encourage is anybody who's doing whatever their career is, you should try and be the best in the world at it. And world being defined as, you know, what you choose to tackle as your market. If, you know, Java, their world is not the whole world. Java is Coeur d'Alene for right now. And now Hayden. So it's like be the best in the world in Hayden, best in the world in Coeur d'Alene at coffee and your pastries or whatever is your bowl of soul, which is their signature drink. And I think in the world of technology and online, it's a lot easier to try and define your world much broader and larger. I know there's people in Coeur d'Alene that work for Nest. I know there's people here that work for big auto manufacturer technology companies in Germany. They all hang out and they're engineers. One guy works for the United Nations doing front-end development. These are all people that I know hanging around town that are just building their websites. So, you know, I think shoot for the moon and go as big as you can. But, you know, if you miss the moon, pick up the scraps along the way and make some good money anyways.
So with some technical knowledge, there's room to be a creative person.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's not just engineering. I want to say that. It is, if maybe your gift is more on the creative side, marketing, branding, advertising, there's still opportunity there. I think the idea of manual labor in society is continuing to become less. I was talking with a gentleman back in Boston, Dan Perry. We're hoping he'll be coming out to speak for the conference. He's at Singularity, fantastic. He said, manual labor is not something we're going to need in a few years. It's going away. And you can work from anywhere in the world that you want to. That's the beauty of it, really. You can contribute to projects and then it can be built or put together by a few people or by machines. So I would really encourage the idea of, you know,
higher level jobs is really important.
Yeah. If you want to be a guy who does curbing, don't go down that path. Be the guy who creates the machine that creates the curbing or writes the code to do cool creative things with the curbing. We're in a different world.
Because if you're really passionate about curbing, right, like it's a means to an end to do robots or whatever it is to improve the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any more questions?
Anything else?
Or should just mingle? Yeah.
What are you up to now?
What I'm up to, I fly a lot, and I'm just, putting my head down and getting, doing work.
Virtual reality.
Yeah. Oh yeah, VR. I'm actually really getting into VR. I bought an Oculus Rift. If you know what that is, kind of headset, and I think it's going to be really interesting with virtual reality and education and the psychology of it too. Because I think I saw this person. They did this study, and then like they got this person, and then he started out in the VR world as like morbidly obese, 500 pounds, barely alive, and they told him to like run in place. And then every couple seconds he ran in place, he lost a pound until he got to a healthy weight. And every time he stood in place, he gained a pound until he, got to back 500 pounds. And then they took the headset off. They found he was more likely to work out. So how do you apply that kind of psychology to like learning and stuff, not just to working out?
We're in a weird world that's coming fast too. I get a kick out of people who are like, oh, well, I'll never see driving car or self-driving cars in my lifetime. It's like, you're just not paying attention to the world then.
Well, it's really interesting because it's a $300 billion industry of self-driving cars came about that will be gone. But then you also like self-driving cars, if you never have to own a car and it's just Uber, like that, they say in total that would save like the human race of everyone who owns a car and all that. They would have like an extra $1 trillion in money to spend. So you lose $200 billion, gain $1 trillion for new industries. So I think that's really interesting.
Yeah. And when you ponder the idea, I think just think of things that go with that: parking lots, parking garages. What cars
More
weren't
space.
needing to stop? They just waited for the next person to ask for it. It's a fantastic world we're heading into very quickly.
Graffiti will be a problem.
Graffiti?
And gum under the seats.
Oh,
Well, Uber does,
in the
like-
vehicles. Yeah, they'll have cameras.
Well, like you get
Oh, no,
rated
you-
1 star. If you've used Uber, right? Like it's just such an amazing, much better taxi experience. No
Some
gun.
cars won't stop for you unless you're a 5-star passenger.
Maybe. If you're the graffiti guy, you're stuck.
You get kicked off if you have like 2.5 stars.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So they know. Any other questions? Anybody online with questions?
no.
A few viewers there? No
You can click the
questions there?
YouTube link if you're on the Start Day 1 site and ask questions in the chat bar.
Yep. And this will be recorded. It'll be on the Innovation Collective and then also probably on
Day 1.
Day One. If you're looking for career stuff, kind of in the tech space, definitely jump into Day One. Innovation Collective. We have the Twitter, Innovate CDA, Innovation Collective on Facebook. We got all sorts of events that we do around here. Coming up next month for the Fireside Chat, we're interviewing the CEO of Lighthouse. Funny enough, it's a worldwide brand that's run out of locally here. Their CEO is going to speak, and then we're going to be interviewing the founder of ESPN, the early chairman of that as well. It's an interesting story. It's funny when my kid wants to watch basketball, and it's like I'm watching ESPN and thinking, he's here in town. Fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
So I can't think of much else. Oh, if anybody wants to, this Friday, there's a company called Harbrick. They're a very disruptive self-driving car company. They're going to be in town, and we're trying to woo them into Coeur d'Alene to move here. They're working with a lot of big car manufacturers. We're going to be doing a party on Friday night just to kind of hang out with their staff. If people want to hang out with them and just enjoy time, they're going to come here with their company to do a corporate retreat. And I don't have details yet. It'll be on the Facebook group. We'll do an invite through there, and then also the email list. If you want to go to Innovate CDA, we have an email list there, and same thing with
StartDay1.
StartDay1.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sweet.
Cool. Hey, thanks, guys. Give Eric a hand and mingle around, I guess.